Happy New Year to my grandchildren. It's 2017, and Grandmommy would like to read you one of her favorite books when she was a little girl. And it's about New Year's. And the name of it is Miss Flora McFlimsy and the Baby New Year. It was New Year's Eve. Miss Flora McFlimsy was sitting before the fireplace and her little rocking chair, and all the other dolls had gone to a party. A party in the big house where Miss Flora McFlimsy had been forgotten. She was feeling rather lonely, so she had come downstairs to sit by the fire and watch the old year out, and Poo-Koo Cat was asleep on the hearth bench. There she is. And just to let you know, little Flora McFlimsy is a doll, and Poo-Koo Cat is the black cat. He's kind of bad. Okay, let's go on. It was cozy and warm in the dollhouse, but outside the wind howled and blew the sleet against the window pane. Poo-Koo Cat stretched himself and sat up. "Why don't you make some good resolutions for the new year, Miss McFlimsy?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "I suppose that would be a very good idea. Are you going to make some new resolutions too, Poo-Koo?" "Certainly not," answered Poo-Koo. "I don't need to. I'm always perfect. I wash behind my ears, and there's no mouse safe around me, and except, of course, Timothy Mouse, but that's only because he's a friend of yours." Miss Flora McFlimsy looked uneasy towards Timothy Mouse's corner. Poo-Koo gave his head a shake. The little bell on his collar went tink-a-link-a-link. "No," he said, "there's no reason why I should make resolutions, but it's different with you, Miss McFlimsy. Now, I don't suppose that I'd like to mention it, but do you remember the evening last June when you hid under the lilac bush while everyone was looking for you so that you could brag to the other dolls that you sat and stayed in the garden all night?" "Yes," answered Miss Flora McFlimsy humbly. "And that night before General Jackson's birthday party, when you pinned your hair up in curl papers so you'd look prettier than Genevieve?" "Yes," whispered Miss Flora McFlimsy. She was dreadfully ashamed of that. The little girl in the red-topped shoes had found her hiding behind the piano, and had scolded her and brushed her hair out straight again, and put her little black hair ribbon back on her head. "But the worst thing you did," continued Poo-Koo, "was when you promised Bo Peep you'd look after Ba so she could go to the picnic in the pine forest. You were so interested in listening to that silly bird singing out in the apple tree that you forgot all about Ba, and that gave me a chance to pull him around and chew his ear." "Yes, I remember," said Miss Flora McFlimsy. She went silent for a little while. Then she asked timidly, "Didn't you jump up in the Christmas tree, Poo-Koo, and knock some of the balls off and break them?" "Why, yes," said Poo-Koo, "but I shouldn't have done that. I should have climbed up to the top of the tree instead and shaken it. Then all the balls would have fallen off at once." "Oh," said Miss Flora McFlimsy. Poo-Koo Cat lay down again and closed his eyes. Tick-tock, tick-tock went the clock. Miss Flora McFlimsy stared at the fire. She thought of Ba and little Bo Peep and sighed. This year she would try to be better. She'd keep her promises. And she'd try not to envy Miss Genevieve's curls anymore. And she wouldn't fall off the piano stool when she was put on the... Excuse me, I'm recording. And she wouldn't fall off the piano stool when she was put on it to practice her music lessons. And she'd learn her ABCs. And she'd try to be kind. Miss Flora McFlimsy sighed again. Perhaps she'd better go to bed after all. It was lonely sitting there making resolutions and listening to the wind. So she got up and she lit her candle and tiptoed over to the stairway. But what was that? Poo-Koo jumped to his feet. Could it have been the wind? It came again. This time it sounded like a little cry. Poo-Koo was walking around the room waving his tail. Could there be something over there in the shadow crying? Suddenly, with a loud whoosh, the door blew open. The snow swirled into the room and blew in like a feather on the wind, with a tiny creature with dimpled arms and legs. It had no clothes on, only a ribbon tied over one shoulder. "Oh!" cried Miss Flora McFlimsy, putting down her candle and running toward the little shivering thing. "Mr. Salvador, could you please be quiet?" "Look, Poo-Koo, what is it? Is it a doll? Is it an angel?" "His name is written plainly on that ribbon," said Poo-Koo. "If you'd learned your ABCs, you should be able to read it. It says Little New Year." Miss Flora McFlimsy put her arms around the little creature and tried to lift him. But he was so heavy, but somehow she managed to get him over to the fireplace. Then, still holding him, she climbed back up into the rocking chair. Poo-Koo curled himself up again on the rug, and just as I was having such a nice nap, he grumbled, "My mother never let us kittens around on doorsteps and left us on the doorsteps to come blowing in and waking everyone up on cold winter nights. And if we wandered off, she would she would come after us, and she'd bring us back by the scuff of our necks, and she gave us a good nip on the ear besides." Miss Flora McFlimsy didn't seem to hear him. She was bending over the little New Year and rubbing his tiny little hands and whispering in his ear. "If only I had something to put on you," she said. She thought for a moment. Then she laid Baby New Year down carefully and went over to the trunk. There in the top tray was a wee shirt. She hurried back with it. It was really hard to get the little New Year's arms and the sleeves, but at last she succeeded and buttoned it up. "You must be hungry, too," she whispered. She went over to the cook stove and poured some milk into a saucepan. When it was warm, she poured it in a tiny cup and gave the little New Year a drink. Just then Poo-Koo opened one eye. "It was bad enough," he said, "to wake me up, without taking the milk intended for my midnight supper." Miss Flora McFlimsy wasn't listening. She was rocking the New Year and singing a lullaby. She could only remember one of the lines, "When the wind blows, the cradle will rock," but she sang it over and over and over again. She didn't feel sad and lonely anymore. She felt wonderfully happy. She had even, there she is rocking the Baby New Year. She had even forgotten all about the party in the big house that she was not invited to attend. The little New Year fell asleep, and Poo-Koo slept again. Miss Flora McFlimsy kept rocking and singing with her tiny voice, and the clock ticked on. At last, the little Baby New Year stirred. He opened his eyes and smiled, and at that moment the clock struck 12. Then suddenly he seemed to grow bigger, and in another moment he was gone. He had slipped out of her arms, the door blew open, and he ran out into the night. Miss Flora McFlimsy ran after him, but the door blew shut again. "Oh!" she cried. Then all at once she was back in her little rocking chair before the fire. Bells were ringing near and far away. Miss Flora McFlimsy, she rubbed her eyes. Had I just been asleep? Could it have been a dream? She walked over to her trunk and looked in the top tray. The little shirt was gone. She stood still a minute, listening to the bells. How beautifully they sounded. Over in the big house, she could hear all the people calling Happy New Year, and someone was singing, Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Miss Flora McFlimsy didn't hear the rest of the song because just then Pooh Cuckoo came over and his little bell went ringing too, tink-a-link-a-link. He put out his paw. Happy New Year, Miss Flora McFlimsy, he said. And that's the end of the story. Miss Flora McFlimsy and the New Year Baby. I love you. Happy New Year, and I miss you all. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Love you to the moon and back.